Hello, good evening, everybody. It's been a long time since I've done a YouTube live stream. I hope you're doing all right. It's always strange to watch these things. It's the only way I can see if there are any comments. I started the stream just a few minutes early just to make sure that there were no problems. My internet, of course, always comes and goes, so I'll do our best and hope that the bandwidth spirits are with us. And already I'm seeing some fluctuations, so I was kind of worried about that, but we'll do what we can do. I've found that there's really no perfect time when the stream is going to just be steady. I can try and maybe set up closer to the router sometime, but hopefully... Hello, Giga! I think I know who that is. Oh gosh, we're having streaming issues already, so hopefully that sorts itself out. I tested for but it comes and it goes. So if you have stuff that you want to talk about, put it in the comment section. There is a delay, so I will get to it. But right now, this is just sort of like the pre-show. I'm just waiting till 9:30 really, and for me to really start into things, because that is what I posted the time as, and I never can seem to just start it right at the top. I'm always a little bit nervous, and I want to get a few minutes in case there are any technical difficulties, which there generally are, because I hope my oh, it looks like my little light that I have, I got a ring light, and I used it the other day for a few minutes, but it's already looking a little bit faded. It does not have a long battery life, unfortunately. Let me see if I can get... Where's my little charger port for this? It's probably where I cannot get to it easily. Yeah, it's at the top of the... But maybe I can charge it with this little sucker. I need a longer... Nope. You'd think I'd have more options here, but we'll see. I really want to make sure that this thing does not go out, because it really does help things. To have that. Now, let's see. I jerry-rigged it. Oh, so I already see if I have a comment. They want to talk about Shinto kami spirits of everyday objects. The notion that all things have a soul in their own way. Got any viewpoints? Well, I am not Shinto, and I actually know very little about Shintoism. But it is an ancient religion, and it has a lot of shamanic roots as well. And that's a fairly typical animist kind of idea, that everything has a spirit. Even objects, what we would consider inanimate objects, all have a particular spirit. And treating things with respect. And you have to also think about it this way, is that in times past, material objects were a lot harder to produce. So we had a respect for materials. I remember as a child, if you broke something, you were in big trouble, right? Because things were more expensive, harder to, took more time to earn the money to pay for them. Now things are a lot cheaper in most cases, material objects. Hello, Dorothy. Welcome to the stream. So that was my little side view on topics. As far as kami spirits, I don't know about kami spirits because I don't know a whole bunch about Shintoism, except what I've seen in a little bit of anime and manga. So, which, I don't know. I doubt that, I wouldn't want to comment on any religion based on what I've seen in pop culture or comics. So, but just as far as objects holding a spirit, holding an identity, I mean, there's a whole branch of psychic research called psychometry, where it's the idea that objects pick up vibrations, particularly the people they carry, the spaces that they're in. And I used to know somebody many years ago who could read objects like that. And it is something you can learn to do as well. But some people are more naturally gifted in that area. But yes, I work a lot with stones for healing and stone spirits. I just finished a Qigong practice before I started this stream, and I did, fusion of the 5 elements, so working with the elemental energies. So there's a lot to that. And I feel, if you look at a child when they draw like the sun, almost universally they will draw a smiley face on that sun. It's just something that kids do. It's this inherent human idea that the things in our world have their own personality, have their own spirit. And I think that's just kind of natural. It's, anthropomorphizing things, giving other things human qualities, like people naming their cars. It's what we do. And Terry Pratchett, who's a deceased author, but he was brilliant. He wrote the Discworld novels as well as several other series of novels. But he's most known for his Discworld series, which is sort of like fantasy parody, which is an interesting category, or satire in some cases. And he uses the term quite a bit, anthropomorphic personification. There is a series of in just about every single one of his books, the Grim Reaper, Death, is a character. And Death always speaks in all caps, but Death himself is defined as an anthropomorphic personification. And so basically a force that we have given personality to. And so the Grim Reaper is one, Mother Nature's another, Father Time is an easy one, Old Man Winter. Just anything you can think of. The idea of, explaining the thunder as, in the old times, like Zeus, throwing the thunderbolts. Again, our oldest concepts of deities and supernatural forces were explanations of the natural world. So I don't know if that answers your question, really. It's just a topic. But I'm glad people are on the stream. And again, if you have something to say, please drop it in the comments. Like I said, there is a delay, so I'll get to it as quickly as I can. So one of the things I sort of put this together. I was like, I haven't done an update in quite a while on a live stream, and that's because this last month or so has been really difficult. I live in the U.S., so we're in the middle of a big surge in virus cases, particularly where I'm in. Where I think our positivity rate's like at 12% in my county, which is insane. And that's just known cases. So there's been that going on. There's, the upcoming, we just had Thanksgiving last week, and we had to amend our plans here in the household because of the pandemic. So the past several years, I've had a friend come up from out of town, and she's spent Thanksgiving with us, for about 5 years or so. And it makes a huge difference to not have her here. And that was really sad when we had to make that decision to call that off because of the pandemic. And it's been weird because last year was the first year without my grandmother, who we used to take care of and live with us. But the sort of salve on the wound was that my friend Jenny was coming up still. So the house didn't feel quite so empty. But this year it does, really feeling the absences at the table. At the same time, very thankful that I even have family members here in the household to, have a Thanksgiving with. I know a lot of people had to do their Thanksgivings via Zoom. All right, I see some comments here. So that's kind of what's been going on. I'll get to the comment, Dorothy. That's a big topic because you want to know about what I think about the collective evolution at this time. I'm not sure what I think about that, but I'll catch to it at some point during the live stream. So, in this past month, we've had like Thanksgiving. We had the election at the beginning of the month that ticked into like almost the middle of the month to when they finally called it, and when it was. And then there's just been so much drama around that, and that's been a very painful process, made more so by the craziness of the current administration, trying to make it as painful as possible and delegitimize the voting system. And I won't lie, going into the election, I was really, really terrified. In fact, if I'm honest, my body is still in fight or flight mode. And I worked really hard to calm down. And it's really challenging because I've had a couple of years where it's just been one thing after another. And then this year hit. I had personal health scare, and then we had the pandemic. Then I lost my jobs. So the scramble for that. I've had to kind of redefine how I teach, redefine what I teach, and, worry about, what's going on. And so there's just been, my own personal stress and fears and anxieties about the future. And then there's the collective, which has been extraordinarily powerful. And then if you go into this, I'm not sure if I want to fall down this rabbit hole or not of, I don't know, astrological alignments. This has been a year for the history books for that too. And we've got another big one coming up on the winter solstice of all things, the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. So we'll just say there's been a lot of cosmic stuff going on. There's been a lot of societal stuff going on. There's been a lot of personal stuff going on. And because of that, I haven't, had it to stream because I try to stay somewhat upbeat. But it's been really difficult. And on top of this, I also tend to get depressed during the winter anyway. So I struggle with energy levels during the dark half of the year. So, yeah, I haven't been up to doing everything that I was doing. And, just trying to keep my own personal practice going has been a struggle. In the midst of this, I don't want to say like it's all gloom, it's all doom. I know it's really popular to complain about 2020. And there's lots there to, grieve in 2020. Besides just the dystopian nightmare we seem to wake up to day after day. So wow, there's more questions. I swear, I'm not ignoring the comment sections. I'm just trying to build toward it because part of this live stream is sort of like a catch up. What have I been up to? What I've been doing? My thoughts about this whole process, and about what's going on. So, all this external stuff, and then my personal practice, which, my personal faith is tested. Is what I do doing beneficial? Does it matter? Does it have an impact? I was telling somebody who's on my weekly prayer list the other day, I asked, hey, how's that going for you? Because they just started to be added on um, I think a month or two ago. And so it's always nice to get feedback on that. I do ceremony every Friday. Um, Not at the same exact time on Friday. I'm not quite that good at consistency. I'm pretty consistent, but yeah, it'd be almost impossible for me to like say this is the hour until I get like my own living situation set up better. Um, because I'm just not that organized. What can I say? And I like to be a little bit loose about it. I basically created a ceremony that is uh, I can be consistent with because I am a little loose about how it goes. The only requirements are that I have a rattle, I shake my rattle, in front of my altar or my mesa, and I pray. That's it. Now, I'm generally more elaborate than that. But there are days where I just don't have it. I shake my rattle for maybe only 5 minutes or so to think, But when I do have the energy, I shake that rattle uh, for probably a good 30 to 40 minutes, sometimes longer, depending. So when I have the energy, I invest the energy. But I know that my energy is going to ebb and flow, so I've allowed for that. And what that has done is allowed me to be consistent for 7 years. Um, so I have done my Friday ceremony consistently for 7 years, which if I look back on it, I'm like, wow, I've really dug in with that, which is great. And it's become a cornerstone of my practice. But, I send it out, and there's over 100 people on that list, and it goes to 5 different continents. But when you, particularly this year, when you look at and you see what's going on, you're thinking, how much is this, prayer doing? What is it doing? Small little quantum effects in the big cosmic soup of the universe. How does it all shake out? Not that I'm going to stop doing it. I think it's good for me to have that consistency, no matter how effective it is, from a personal level. But I always wonder, what is the outcome? I'm interested in outcomes. Like I love what I do. But I don't want to do something just because. I want it to be of service, and that's kind of where I've been. So I've been super duper depressed, super duper anxious over the past few months. I've also had days of grace, so it's not all been bad, and I don't want to say this whole year has been bad. It's been very stressful, hands down. But some of the things that have come out of this year are things that would not have happened for me had it not gone so off the rails. One of the things is the live streaming. I would never have started probably doing the live streams, or not to the extent that I have. Not that I'm doing a ton of it, not that I'm generating loads of income from it, because I'm not. But the kind of outreach that I'm doing has changed in this year. And I just remember something I was going to do. I was going to use a rune to help me project and help me communicate. I was like, I wrote a whole book on this. I should use some of this stuff that I know, right? So let me just... See, one of the things I'm trying to do lately is, instead of just sulking, is use the tools that I have. At the same time, don't use the tools to avoid my feelings, but to work with them. So I am going to get, I'm getting to a place where I'll tell you other stuff, and we'll get to more comments and more interactions, I swear. This is a free flow conversation. I thought about writing notes and talk about this, and I just decided no. Let's just be free form. So, anyways, where was runes? etc. So some of the things that have come out of this year has been, really going back into sort of my crafting mode. Uh, I dived back into my studio. It took me a while. I had to sort of sneak in a little bit, and I fired a kiln. The week of election day, I was like, I need to plan so that I'm going to be glazing and firing that week to sort of take my mind off of things. Didn't work, but it sort of lit a fire under my butt, and I got some things done. I got some wonderful glaze tests too that came out, so that I can lower my firing temperature, which lowers my carbon footprint and expands my color palette, and extends the life of my kiln. So, yay. Win, win, win. All the way around. But yeah, I mean, going into an artistic space and creating some things, really, that I'd always tried to create but had never gotten the skill down for whatever reason. And I don't know if it's because there was nowhere to go, nothing to do. I was able to focus more, or I needed just to focus on something to keep my mind off of the awfulness that was going on in the world. But whatever the mixture was, it worked, and I was able to produce some of the best work that I've ever made. And I've also, I have been working on my next book slowly, very slowly. This year has not been a year for productivity for me, but it has been a year for experimenting. I expanded and really refocused and worked on my Patreon account. So, and finding like that's one of the places where I really want to expand, where I really want to grow, and work on those relationships between people and how I'm interacting with people. For me, before it was like building clientele, and not that I'm not doing that. I want to do that, obviously, but at the same time, building this sort of community that Patreon allows me to do, that's been important. Kind of see where I'm at. It's also sort of, because I'm not bound to the schedule that I was bound to. I'm like, and when the pandemic's over, I'm not sure I want to go back to that. So I don't know what I want to do yet, or how I'm going to make ends meet. But I want to be able to travel. There's people I want to see. I want a different life. And I've also been really looking at relationships. And I've been really sad because I've been examining relationships and finding them lacking. And I know I'm talking a lot about myself, but the reason I'm doing that is just to show you kind of where I'm at, and I'm sure a lot of you are kind of in the same situation. A lot of you are having to reevaluate, rethink, find new ways to do things, find new ways to meet your needs, to connect, and you're finding out what's important to you. And I do miss my students, but I don't know if I want to teach as much as I did, just because I couldn't make enough from it, and it was taking a whole lot of energy. So I do want to be able to do and when I say teach, I taught Tai Chi at several local community centers, and I'm still streaming a class for one of them on their Facebook group every week. But before that, I was teaching anywhere between 4 to 6 classes a week. And I'm an introvert who sometimes plays an extrovert on TV. And when I was teaching, I had to play an extrovert. And it would be very tiring. And so if you're not an introvert, you can't really understand the, I guess, energy output that it takes to, kind of be there in front of all these people and, be on. And that's what I had to do. And it's not, and I was good at it, but it did like drain me. If I taught 2 classes in a day, I would just be dead to the world. And there was times in the last year I was teaching. I was getting ready to be where I was going to be teaching 3 classes a day on certain times, because I had beginner sections, every so often during the year, and it was just a lot, and it wasn't really paying enough for it to take that much energy. So that said, that's one thing. So reevaluating career, how I want it to all fit together. Do I want to stop teaching altogether? Absolutely not. I really love the outreach. I really love helping my students. But I think the balance of it needs to change. It needs to shift. And I think a lot of us are finding that our work-life balance was not in balance at all. A lot of people are finding that they enjoy working from home. And I think these are good things to find out. This is really good to know. And, hopefully to advocate for. There are things that are heartening and things that are disheartening in the world right now. One of the heartening things has been just seeing so much energy pour into the Black Lives Matter movement. It needs more energy, always does. Fighting racial injustice and bigotry and systemic racism really is crucial for people to move forward as a species. So somebody asked me my thoughts on collective evolution earlier. I think it was Dorothy. Yeah. So this coming to the forefront right now is extremely important. The reason it's extremely important, other than the personal level of the injustice and the suffering that it has caused people, is that until these systems are taken apart and we can stop being put into different groups to be played against each other, we're going to be continually manipulated by people in power that will use these arbitrary groups to fight against each other and maintain their own power while everyone else suffers. And that's how it's played. That's how it's been played politically for decades. Actually, for longer than decades, for like centuries. Pit people against each other. They use up all their energy fighting each other. They do not fight the system. Donna, glad to see you too. Wonderful. Thanks for coming to the stream. So from a collective evolution standpoint, the rise of these racial justice movements is important. And what's very encouraging is it's not all Black people in the rallies. It's not all Black people in the crowds. It's a lot of different people coming together to say, hey, this is enough. We want better for each other. And that's really important. And for me, I will say this. For me, growing up, my issue, the thing that has always been close to my heart, has been the environment. And I mean, that's what it's not that I don't like people, it's not that I don't care about people, but if you want to go straight to my heart, go environmental. And maybe that has a play into why I, started down into the shamanic practitioner path, because of that connection to that world, to the natural world, and the love of it. But the things I've realized is that racial injustice, environmental impacts tend to hit minority people first and harder, but B, as long as we have this sort of prejudice, our overall environment's not going to improve and it's not going to get any better because they can use racial stuff to play against each other and then not get anything done. So that's a big one. Um, I think the other collective evolution, at least here in the States, and you didn't really see the outcome of that from this past election, was the idea that universal health care really needs to happen. Um, we didn't see that in the congressional outcomes of elections, but I think if not now, it's going to happen at some point. I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime, but I think that this country and pretty much the whole developed world, and eventually the rest of the world, the whole world will come into the idea that universal healthcare, that everybody else's health and well-being affects yours. And this pandemic has been really been an eye-opener for that. Now, on the downside, what's been really disheartening and just devastating to me has been the utter callousness, the cruelty, the selfishness that I've seen of people that won't do the simplest things to protect others. So I've been really amazed that people in my spiritual community have gotten on the anti-masker bandwagon, anti-vaxxer bandwagon, anti-whatever band, basically touting personal liberty and basically, my rights, my rights, my rights, my rights. That's great. Everybody has rights. But today, and I'm going to be a little bit crass here, I just kind of lost it, and I was like, your rights really shouldn't, your stupidity shouldn't be what causes the end of my life or the end of my loved ones' lives. Because you're chanting my rights, my rights, my rights. You have rights, and you have responsibilities. And if you're going to have rights, you're going to have responsibilities. And it's for our responsibility to take care of one another by trying to limit the spread of this virus. And I have seen just the heights of selfishness, the heights of malice with people because they're asked to do something very simple. Wear a mask. And you know what? I'm not going to monetize this video, so I'm going to say wear a fucking mask. I've got people in this household with asthma and who have advanced medical conditions other than that. And the fact that someone can't wear a simple mask when they're in public, when they're going to the store, when they're, and that they would actively, gather in large groups, is just dumbfounding to me. And it basically says, everybody else's life doesn't matter as much as my convenience, as much as my, my rights, or really my prerogatives, what I just want to do. It's sort of like I'll do what I want, We all know the people, I'll do what I want. And I've just watched people say the most casually cruel things on social media. People that I know. People that I've worked with. And that has been the most soul-crushing thing, is just to see the commonality of evil. Just how common it is. And that's what I've struggled with the most, I think. And I'm like, well, what do we do? I mean, and, of course, I'm like everybody, I get angry. But lately, I don't even bother, most of the times, I don't even bother to post a response to something. I'll let somebody else do it. Because I'm tired. But yeah, that's been the challenging thing, is just to see, how much people will support selfishness, cruelty, and laugh at other people's suffering. I currently have a friend who is in the hospital with COVID. someone I've worked closely with in the past, worked with their family, and it's yeah. And I have heard from Spirit that I will lose people in my circle from this. So I take this very personally. So if you're not wearing a mask when you go out, if you're not taking precautions, if you're not social distancing, I don't want to have anything to do with you. So it's just that for personal safety, but also because I don't want to engage with that energy, because I feel it's a selfish energy, and maybe some people are really truly convinced that what's going on is not real, it's a hoax, but I don't see how you can at this point, because our hospitals are filling up in my community. We're at capacity, and we're not even just a few days past Thanksgiving. We're going to surge. We're going to surge hard. And I feel really bad for a lot of the medical practitioners that, they have to stay away from their families when they get home. They risk their lives. And I know you could consider this political, but this is what's been on my mind. This is what has been, occupying my thoughts. This is what has kept my body in fight or flight mode. For many years, I've had nightmares about a plague, about a pandemic, about different things. And I really feel like this year, like something that I saw I had a dream that I had when I was a teenager, when I'm in a room, I'm seeing a flat, a screen, and I'm seeing all these areas on a map light up in red as red zones. And it just struck me that the kind of screen that it was a flat screen, which we didn't have when I was in high school. We didn't have like these plasma and LCD screens. We didn't have those. We had the CRT monitors still, vacuum tube TVs. So this idea that I was seeing this sort of futuristic screen, now of course we had sci-fi, so it wasn't like out of the realm of possibilities, but that I felt like I was like in the middle of that dream that was so disturbing. Decades later. So it's really strange. And I've gone off on a weird tangent, and I've totally ignored comments that I need to go back and look at. So, no, I talked about collective evolution a little bit. Thanks, guys. So Giga said that Ingus is their favorite rune. Ingus, I don't use Ingus as much. And what I use it for is not that I don't like. It's really about the home, about the heart, and like the energy that you are sort of sheltering, I guess. At least that's what I wrote about when I wrote my book. That's what I was given by that rune. Like, what are we containing? And I almost see it almost like a lantern, and that whatever you put in that center space is what's going to radiate outwards. And so it's about choosing the energy that you're going to radiate outwards, which is, hey, thanks for bringing that up, because that's what we all need to be doing right now. And for those of you that don't know, I actually made a bunch of lantern forms. In fact, let me go show you one. I'm going to get it. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going across the room to get something. I didn't mean to turn this into show and tell. All right, so this, let me make sure, is one of the lanterns that I made. And let me light it up for you. Ta-da. So yeah, I made this, and this is the one that I kept. Trust me, I could have sold it, but I decided I wanted one for myself. When you make stuff and you sell stuff, you should always keep at least one good one for yourself. That's what I've learned over time, because I used to make a lot more stuff and then I would sell all of it, and I'd only have the ones that I couldn't sell left over. So I only had the bad examples of my work, or the not as great examples of my work. Thanks. Um, yeah, that one. Lantern forms are something I wanted to make for years, and I have attempted them before, and they looked awful. That's what I was saying. One of the good things that came out of this year was some of the studio work, and that was one of the things. It's like all of a sudden it sort of clicked, and I was able to do it, and I don't know why. And I did make a bunch of others, and I have a pottery sale going on in my local area. I send people the invoices. Post the pictures on Facebook, and they message me, and I send them a PayPal invoice, and then I deliver it, as long as it's in the local area. I don't ship because pottery is notoriously hard to ship. And right now it requires me going into places, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to be exposed and therefore expose my family to anything that I don't have to. But if I can, get a PayPal invoice from somebody, I can drop it off on their doorstep, ring the doorbell, step back, and wave to them from a distance, and then head on to my next delivery. So that's been one of the good things, is to see people, like, because I've posted pictures of things in progress on my Instagram and my Facebook, and people going like, wow, that's really cool. Are you selling those? And I've sold out all the lanterns except for one. And of course the one that I'm not selling, which is this one, because it's mine. I'll have to make more at some point. But yeah, that's been good. Learning, I've refocused a lot on my personal, like, physical training, like my Qigong and Tai Chi. In fact, I have enough hours to certify for the first level of Qigong certification, whenever I decide to do that. Probably post-pandemic, or maybe not. I might do it before then, because I think I can do that remotely, actually, via Zoom, with my teacher and one of his teachers. So, I mean, I have been making strides in different areas, and I've used it for personal development. I've also had times where I'm not very productive and I'm not doing stuff, and I'm just kind of moping through the day. I mean, that happens too. And this idea, oh, I know I was going to tell you. This idea of productivity, and I've talked about this before on live streams and other things, but this insane idea of productivity, that we always have to be doing something, have to be progressing, have to be growing, is lunacy. It really is. It's not sustainable. It's not healthy. It, makes resting a reward rather than something that you need to do. I remember after I published my first book, I immediately, someone, so when's your next book coming out? And I was like, step back, lady. I just finished writing this. This was 2 years worth of work, so back off. And I didn't even really start working on this next book until, it's been almost a year, and I'm not really very far into it. It's probably going to take a couple more years before I got even a draft put together. And I'm like, is there a timeline here? Am I on a deadline? No. I mean, I don't have to write another book if I don't want to. But I already have the title, so I was like, yeah, I really want to write this book. but I want it to be good. So, yeah, that's where we're going with that. So, do you have any other questions before I move on to another topic? No? All right. Well, let's see. Because of, all the things ending and me not really having a solid plan about what I'm going to be doing, how I'm going to make ends meet once this is all said and done, once we've danced the last dance with the Rona, I've been feeling really down on myself. I'll be honest. I was like, gosh, I'm such a loser. I haven't accomplished this, haven't done this, I haven't made it like this, you know? Because the best thing that you can always do is compare yourself to everybody else that you went to high school with on Facebook. It's always the best thing for your self-esteem. It's the greatest, for, realistic ideas of where you should be and what you should have accomplished, which is, of course, I'm being sarcastic. It's not good at all. Um, there is no like universal timeline for everyone's life. You get there when you get there, or if you get there. And I started, as I was coming out of this, because I made myself meditate, um, which, by the way, does not always feel good. So if you're meditating and it's always wonderful and blissful, I'm going to ask you, are you really meditating? Or are you daydreaming and telling yourself stuff? Lately, when I've been meditating, I sob, I cry, stuff comes up, and I don't feel great after. I mean, or during, really. Um, I will say there is a little bit of release that happens, so there's not so much stuck, but I still have that sort of after effect of, afterwards. But one of the things that has been coming to my mind is this idea, it's out there, it's nothing new, that everyone deserves love. Everyone is loved. Everyone is worthy of love. And I thought, someone said, well, you're not a loser. And I thought, well, what if I am a loser? Does that disqualify me for love? It really shouldn't. So this idea, and the reason I think this is radical or revolutionary in my mind is because there's always some part of me that's going to be screaming at me that I'm a loser. You've always got that inner critic. And, what did I name mine? Brett. Yes, I named mine Brett. I couldn't think of a douchier name than that. And if your name's Brett, I'm sorry, but I was modeling that after a certain judge. And I'll leave it at that. I am political. I can't help it. So, I always have that critic in the head that says you haven't done this enough. You're not good enough for this. You didn't do that. You're not. Blah 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 blah. No one's gonna love you because of this because you haven't done this, or you're not good at that, or you're not mentally stable enough for this to receive, or be worthy of. And I'm like, there's an easy way to sidestep that. If you just blanket everyone deserves love no matter who they are, no matter what they've accomplished or haven't, then you can be a complete and total fuck up and still deserve love. And, I start, and then the idea, and this came after a crazy dream too, and then that last day or two, when I woke up, I just put flannel sheets on the bed like a day or two ago, and I've got this nice, beautiful quilt made by a family friend that's been deceased for decades, and we've had their quilts up in the linen closet, and they're beautiful. We have a bunch of them that they gave us, and I'm like, why aren't we using this? And I just wanted something comforting and familiar, and infused with the love of something that was handmade and made because the person liked the people and was creative and wanted to give these things to the people they cared about. And so I wanted to be surrounded in that. And yesterday morning was like the first cold morning that we've really had this season. And I have flannel sheets on the bed, I have this heavy quilt, and my alarm goes off because I had to get up to stream my class, and it felt so nice and warm and comfortable under those sheets. I had to take about 10 minutes to talk myself out of bed. So, but the reason, anyways, this idea of like, what loves me? Who loves me? Even if it's not a person, what loves me in nature? Going back to the very first comment about spirits and spirits of objects, spirits of forces. What if what if no other human being loves me? But what if the wind loves me? What if the sky or the moon or the sun loves me, or the stars, or the trees, or the ocean? Um, can I receive that love? You know, what does it feel if I widen my perspective to what can love me? Not instead of asking, why, or just repeating that, oh, no one's gonna love me as long as this, or because I'm this, or because I'm not that. Instead of just throwing that question out, or not entertaining it as often, because I know I'm not gonna throw it out. But let's be honest. But asking the question, what loves me? Um, and I'll probably go off of that. I'll probably start worrying about what I'm supposed to be doing, or what I haven't done, or personal qualities again. But it's good to start introducing these other questions, these competing narratives, into my space. And I encourage you to do it, because we all have either an inner critic of some sort. Although there's some people that are fairly well put together, they don't have the same inner dialogue. Sometimes I worry about those people, though, because the people that are so sure of themselves, I feel like they don't quite get sometimes where people are. They can't empathize as solidly to people who are struggling. Until I think it's really hard. You can feel sympathy for somebody, but to truly understand what they're feeling, to understand their loss, until you've experienced loss of some sort, it's hard for you to kind of truly understand, that loss for someone else. And it's a lot easier for you to minimize. And that's not saying you have to experience every single thing in order to empathize with something. I'm not saying that, or to the same degree. But you have to have a concept, a mental map of what it feels like, I think, to have pain, to have been hurt, to have given your all and have it not be enough. All these different things. I know what it feels like to be betrayed. I know what it feels like to be gaslit. And so when I have a client or a friend who's experienced those things, I get it on a very visceral level. I get it because I've had those same experiences. Maybe not to the level that a person coming to see me has, but I've had my own level of that, and it's a real challenge. And so, when I get to that place where I'm just like drowning in either pain or suffering or anguish, and my prayer is usually to please help this make me kinder, help this make me more understanding, help this to make me more loving, because the alternate thing is that it can make me more bitter, more angry, more hateful, and more reactive. And I've been all of those things in the past year. And that's okay. I haven't, as long as I don't stay there, as long as I snap out of it. And, as time goes on, maybe I'll snap out of it sooner, or, won't stay in it as long. And I think that has been the case for the most part. As I look back on my life, and I've looked back on past things, when I've really stayed in the anger, when I've really stayed into the hatred and, the hurt. I literally have spent years, looking back and just going, those awful people, that did this horrible thing to me. And that's okay. I still have, in the last year or so, I've had people do some pretty terrible things. Uh, and I was pretty upset with them for a couple months. But had that happened a decade or two ago, it'd be like more like I was really mad at them for a couple years, you know, or I was still like running it through my head. And it's not that I never run these things through my head again, but not as much. Um, so, like I said, I was feeling like a total failure in my practice, and what I was doing, and because I wasn't all shining light beacon on the hill all the time. And then I had to check myself and said, I have kept up with at least the minimum of my practice, sometimes more than the minimum of my practice. I have, when people have asked me for help, I have given it. And most importantly, I haven't killed anybody in the past year. So considering the maelstrom of just awfulness that the year has been, that's a big accomplishment. I may have bitten a few heads off verbally a couple of times, but I didn't inflict harm on anybody. So if you've managed to not inflict grievous bodily harm on somebody in the past 11 months, you're probably doing all right. So cut yourself a little bit of slack. And I've been talking way too much about myself, but I did title this live stream "The Annals of the Mooneagle." I might be mispronouncing it. The Annals. Somebody look that up. I wanted to catch you guys up, and like I said, I'm being very honest about my struggles, and about looking forward and feeling very bleak and going, oh my God, is it even worth getting up? Is it even worth living or taking a breath? I mean, these thoughts do go through my head. And I just have to find a reason. And if my reason is like, I gotta shake that rattle on Friday for my ceremony, that's gotta be enough. Yeah. So I have tools. I speak with different energies and spirits that tell me, oh, there's good stuff coming, and still I doubt, right? I mean, my name is Thomas. For those of you that don't get that reference, Doubting Thomas. I was raised Catholic. So, Thomas was the apostle that doubted that the tales that Jesus had risen, and wasn't quite sure. The guy looked like him that came in the door, but he was like, I don't know. And then he had to show him his hands and stuff. That's the cultural reference, if you believe that story. I'm kind of sour on religions at the moment because I see how so-called religious people are acting. Not all of them. That's very true. I don't want to paint everybody with the same brush. But it really kind of has soured me on particular religions and denominations. Because what is left from a movement, from a religion, from a people is really how they treat each other and how they treat the earth. Thank you, Donna. Thank you for the encouragement. Like I said, I think a lot of us have these thoughts, particularly those of us who struggle with anxiety, depression, or just not having their needs met, which can cause anxiety and depression. It's, and there's this idea that because I work with spirit, because I work with healing energies, that I'm supposed to be all healed all the time, and it's not true. It's just not true. And and some people, I've I've joined a group that looks for guests for podcasts and to be a guest on. And I see these people. I've come through this, and now I'm completely all put together. And I'm like, are you though? I mean, I've come through some stuff too, and I'm like, well, maybe I'm doing it wrong because I don't feel all put together and all like I've completely overcome everything in my past. My tools have been enough to keep me going, but not necessarily feel great while I'm doing it. But like I said, I've kept my bargains. I've kept my practice, and I haven't killed anybody. So I think I deserve a passing grade right now. If not an A, maybe a solid B. If some days maybe a B plus or A minus, but right now I'll say a solid B overall. And of course, what did I do? I just judged myself. I always recommend judging yourself. It always leads to great things. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. So does anybody have any questions or have something they want me to talk about or want to interact about? Because we're getting up to the top of the hour pretty soon. Well, not the top of the hour, but the hour for the podcast. Not podcast. This isn't a podcast. This is a live stream. See, I'm all befuddled. Growth can be painful sometimes. Yeah. It's been mostly painful lately. I will say this. I have grown phenomenally in times when I've felt supported, loved, and accepted as well. That was one of the enlightening experiences of my life. That, this idea, because there's been an idea like, oh, it's the no pain, no gain idea, which there is some validity to that. In some areas of our lives, we will not grow until we face a challenge or adversity. But that's not true across the board. And certain people will grow. And the thing is you won't always grow through adversity either. Sometimes, it will break you. And then the growth comes in that place of acceptance and love. But I've had, it's almost like the contrast, like where I've had like extraordinarily adversity and then acceptance, love, and then that's where I like, took off. It seems like I made quantum leaps. It feels more like in those places where I was, really accepted. But at the same time, I feel like I had to go through some of those painful experiences to get that contrast, to get that understanding. And maybe you don't. I mean, it's going to be very individual to your temperament. And I try to do things to stretch myself a bit. Stretch my comfort zone just a little bit, so that I don't have to force myself into pain. So you're going to have lessons in life. You can seek out some and try to stretch yourself a little bit so that when you encounter them, they're not as, out of the realm of your experience. And if you make yourself a little bit more mentally flexible, emotionally flexible, you can learn things in a way that don't have to be as painful or traumatic. That said, everyone's going to experience loss. Everyone's going to experience pain. It's part and parcel of being alive. If you live long enough, you're going to lose people that you love. If you are open enough, you're going to experience betrayal. You're gonna die. Sorry, I hate to deliver that. In case no one told you that, it's gonna happen someday. And I had to remind myself of that today when I was looking at, virus case numbers. That I'm gonna die someday too. I mean, and then I'm like, I was really sad about that. And then I was like, but I go into that space of unconditional love afterwards, right? So the fact that I didn't get to accomplish this or do this or experience this, well, yeah, that kind of sucks, but be going to someplace nice at least. And at least I think I will. all signs point to maybe. Um, so yeah, that's where I'm at. That's. I don't know if I talked about everything that I wanted to talk about that I was thinking of when I put this on the schedule on the calendar, um, because I didn't write anything down. I don't generally write anything down for live streams. I just do them. And I don't edit them either afterwards. So this is raw, unfiltered Mooneagle. You can't see anything. This thing is way large. I got this when I was in high school, and it still fits. It was enormous on me then, too. It's one of my favorite little fleecy things. I love these in the winter. I was silly when I didn't know how to dress for winter when I was a teenager. This would be all I would wear. I mean, I had pants on too, and shoes and socks and all. But now, of course, I wear layers. Like, I don't know what was wrong with me. I would have not developed this hatred of winter probably if I had dressed correctly for it. I would still have missed the light. That's the big thing, is the low light. So, I was out of college, I think, before I figured out wear layers instead of running around and being freezing all the time. Raw unfiltered Mooneagle is pretty good. Only to be taken in small doses. Too much raw unfiltered Mooneagle might be bad for your health. I used to say that about myself, which is it was a really a mean thing for me to say about myself. Is I was only good in small doses. I'm kind of a bastard to myself a lot of times when I listen to my internal monologues. Oh, that's what I was going to tell you about. Yeah, and then we'll wrap it up, I swear. I never stay at just 1 hour. Once I get going, I'm gone. My next book is dealing with waking the light in dark times. Great thing that I'm working on it right now, right? And part of the process that I'm going through is doing the journey, going through each chakra like it's a medicine wheel. And I'm using sort of the South American medicine wheel that I learned with one of my teachers. So you start in the south on that wheel. That's the serpent, helps to shed the past. Then west, jaguar, overcoming fear, death, pain. To the north, you've got hummingbird, gives you sort of a overall more mythic view, teaches you to find the beauty in things, to taste the sweetness, connects you with ancestors. In the east, you have the eagle or the condor, and it gives you the big picture. It helps you to step into what you are becoming. And then I also go to below, to the earth mother, the above, to the upper world emanation of that particular energy center. And then I go within to speak to the spirit of that chakra itself. And I spent almost all of 2019 in the root chakra. I went very slowly. And I had a lot of stuff happen. Some of it very traumatic. and there. I had to do a lot of work on that. And I mean, the idea like taking up space, being okay with like, oh, don't want to, put anybody out or, take up any space because it might offend somebody, right? Um, and I actually got physically threatened at my place of work while I was going through that mess. I didn't connect it to that at the time, but I realized like, oh yeah, that's like physical safety. Then like the first part of I've done all the way up through the heart this year, and I just started like a week or so ago in the throat, and different things happened as I went through I had all bunch of fears about my health come up when I was in the sacral chakra, the fears of not being supported, being rejected and abandoned and being unlovable, but all those wonderful things that we think about ourselves. Um, I got to the solar plexus, and that's when I started working in my studio again. That's when I started going back and creating things creatively, working in clay, writing, although I haven't written in a bit. And then in the heart, so much emotion. And still feeling so much emotion coming up from that. And now here in the throat. And what's interesting is that I haven't felt it as much viscerally like I had in the lower chakras. But as soon as I did the first journey, that's when I started to post about my pottery for sale, and it started to just sell. And believe you, I've tried to sell work before, and it's never gone like this. And then all of a sudden, it'd been slow on my website for months and months and months, and then like 2 people all of a sudden like, well, I gotta work with you this week. I'm like, oh, okay, It was like everyone was trying to schedule me at once. And it was after this, and I really kind of connected it to that. But the other thing that's come through, which is one of the reasons why I scheduled this live stream, was this idea of how I talk to myself, how I judge myself. All of that seems to be in here. Like the things we say to ourselves, our inner monologue, or our inner monologues, depending. Like I said, I have multiple voices in my head. We've got the critic, we've got the doubter, we've got the encouragers, like saying, no, keep going. Or maybe you should try looking at it from this perspective, voice. Or what if that's not true? So when you have that awful voice or the thing that you're fearing or talking yourself about that's making you feel awful, always ask yourself, but what if that's not true? Because it might not be. So Giga, it's interesting you talk about the Luna moth. Sorry, I ran out of water here, which means it's almost time to end this, but when I talk for an hour straight, or more than an hour straight, I tend to get a little dry. You talk about the Luna moth and your comments, and it's interesting that came up in one of my journeys. And particularly with the heart chakra, the Luna moth came up as a powerful symbol for me. And they are amazing and beautiful, and I've seen them maybe once or twice, and the first time I saw one was I was at a workshop in Maine many years ago, and it started me on a creative sort of path, that workshop did, which I've revisited in the last few months in a sense, and sort of kind of finally got to where I wanted that to go but never had. That's the interesting thing about my 2020 has been, what's happened, things I was never able to do before, all of a sudden I'm able to do. And then many things I want to do, I can't do right now. So it's strange how that worked out. But, there's some things that couldn't happen until this year. And now they've happened. And that's both good and, like I said, both good things and bad things. It was sort of like anything can happen, Ooh, it's anything can happen. Well, that's great, except it also means that anything can happen. And I guess this year has really been about self-regulation, uh, and realizing how much more work I have to do to self-regulate, because I was being regulated by my schedule, by my work commitments, by other people, my social circle, but not by me. Um, and it's a lot of work if it's not a habit of yours to self-regulate. And it's not that we shouldn't depend on other people. I mean, it's really important. Sometimes we need help. Sometimes we need to touch into a different rhythm than our own to get, resettled. But, there should be, for me, I need a better baseline of making sure that I'm moving from my center and not from a center that someone else is dictating. Whether that's a career, whether that's a political movement, or a community, or a group of friends, or whatever it is. And this idea that I'll be happy when someone loves me. Well, what I'm like, well, I've been becoming aware of my own inner monologues and going, well, I haven't been very loving to myself. I've been loving to other people for sure. But would I feel this deep need for company if I were to extend some of that love and compassion to myself? And then I wouldn't, feel as compromising with other folks that don't treat me the way I really want to be treated. And that is something, I'm getting intellectually, but it's only, I'm having to unravel a lot to say, hey, I don't have to meet this standard or that standard to be loved. I could just love myself while also still trying to work on things, but not put off that receiving of love until I have earned the reward. Love shouldn't be a reward, it should just be. And like I said, this is still a mental construct for me that I'm trying to encode it into my behavior and then get it encoded into my body. And that's going to be a process. And I feel like it's going to take time. But you know what? We have some time yet before this is over. So, thank you all so much for joining me on my little rant and my little catch-up this evening. And, of course, if you want to get in touch with me, feel free. You can leave comments. You can go to my website. I'll have the links posted after this updates. And if you're not part of my Patreon community and you want to become involved with that, I got a couple of different levels. So if you want to get on my prayer list and, get into my monthly teleconferences you can start that for just like $5 a month. Or if you want like a monthly session with me on top of that, a little individual mini session, that's like $25 a month. Or if you just want to leave a PayPal donation for one time because, you're strapped, I get it. We all are right now. But if you just want to chat, or have something answered, or request a certain type of healing video, as long as it's not like too like laser specific, because it has to be applicable to other people, right? But yeah, I'm open to working with different people. One of the things that I have learned beyond a shadow of a doubt in this year is that I was created to be helpful. And that feels right, you know. I always have to be doing something in my life at some point that has that leads into that, you know, this just innate desire to be helpful. All right, until next time, stay safe and stay healthy. Peace and blessings.